Welcome to the Chronicles of a Virgo podcast, a podcast centered around uplifting and motivating others to be a better and healed version of themselves. Each week, we will dive into a hard topic pertaining to life experiences, mental health, healing, and even trendy news. We may even have a few friends join us here and there. Now, here is your favorite Virgo host, Shakita Johnson.
Ready?
Okay. All right, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Chronicles of a Virgo podcast. And as usual, I'm your favorite Virgo host, Shakita Johnson. And y'all, I'm a Virgo host, your favorite Virgo host, but I also have another lovely Virgo host with me today. I have Miss Victoria Marshall from the 12th Street Talk Back podcast. I get a little tongue-tied sometimes, sis. Did I get it right?
You got it right. But listen, guess what? As well as being your Virgo sister, I'm actually a Johnson. It's Johnson now. It just still says Marshall on my social media websites because they won't let me change it. But I'm actually a Johnson.
Would you look
so
at
we
that?
are Virgos and we are Johnsons.
Well, that explains a lot.
Okay. All
right. But thank you for joining me for this episode today. How are you doing?
I am doing wonderful. How about you?
I'm doing well. It's just super cold still outside and very windy today. But other than that, I'm doing okay.
I know it is cold. It's windy and cold. And I was out there for about 2.5 seconds. And I said, I can't do this. So I came back in.
Listen, I'm with you. But again, y'all, thanks for joining us back for another episode. Today, we are going to be talking from the subject matter, pivoting through the storm. Lord, I cannot talk today. Pivoting through the storm. Okay. But before we get into the whole episode, we got to do our mental health check. So, Miss Victoria, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being that you're in a very good space and 1 being you're not in a bad space, but you're okay, but you need some pouring in some areas, where would you rate your mental health today?
I am a 5.
Hey.
I am a 5. Glory be to God. I am a 5.
Okay, for the 5.
It's all good over here. It's all good over here. I know. I was thinking about that because I listened to your show and I said, well, I got to tell the truth. I'm a 5. I'm a 5.
Well, I appreciate the truth. I appreciate that, because, if you're a person like, sometimes with mine, like it fluctuates sometimes depending on what's going on throughout my day. But today, my mental health is a 5. And that is a big fucking deal for me. Yes. So,
yay.
Yes. So, I went through a whole move and just adjusting. And as I like to say, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. So I'm going to take as many 5s as I can get. And
I know
again,
that's right.
Yes, the reason why I do these whole mental health checks is to hold myself accountable to check in with myself, but not only with myself, with my guests and my supporters, or just anyone that's listening in general, just to take some time out of your day, your busy day, to just check in internally and see how you're really feeling, because we want to stop or work on stop neglecting ourselves and things that we need to pay more attention to. And I've even, found it now that people that I, connect with and stuff, they'll message me like, what's your mental health scale of 1 to 5? Sometimes I send out text messages to people like, hey, what's your mental health 1 to 5? And, you just got to make sure everyone is doing well, but also make sure you're doing okay. So thank you for taking part in the mental health check.
You're welcome. I'm glad you do that. It's a great thing to do. We need to support each other, check on each other.
Most definitely. So let's get into some things. So like I said, we are speaking from pivoting through the storm. Had to take a breath on that one. So when you hear like of pivoting through a storm, what comes to your mind?
in general with me personally or just in life?
Let's say with you personally.
My walk with God.
Okay.
And when situations come up, and I tell a lot of people on my show, I'm a baby Christian. And what I mean by that is I know Christ all my life. I come from a Christian background, but I didn't always do what our parents wanted us to do, and that was to stay in the church. I wanted to, like most PK kids, you will say you run from the church faster. And even though my mother wasn't a preacher, but her mother was a preacher, so it was basically like living with a preacher. And when I think of some of the stuff that I'm struggling with in my walk with Christ, I consider that a storm. It's just a personal, I feel like I'm not where I should be at the age that I am, if that makes sense. So for me, that's the storm in my life. I can't think of anything bigger than that, other than sometimes I may reflect on my past and I might beat myself up about something that I went through in my past for a day or two, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I agree. I feel like when you get into that point, if a person gets into that point where they're working on their spiritual growth or their Christianity, their religion, whatever applies to them at that time, I feel like that can be something difficult, especially if you were raised one way, because, many of us come, if you come from a Black family, a lot of us have grown up in the church. We were in church 5, 6, 7 days a week. Some days, from sun up to sundown, and certain things were molded in us. And as we got older and realized, like, oh, I don't have to do this anymore. Cool, I don't have to do that anymore. You go and experience life. But I feel like through experiencing life and going through different adversities and things, you always know when to come home, meaning come home to God, So I definitely see how a spiritual journey can be a little like complacent, or be considered a storm, because it is a testament in itself. So,
It is.
shout out to
It
you
can
for
be
that.
difficult days. Yeah, it's I always say, I used to say that it is hard walking with Christ. It's not hard walking with him. It's hard letting go of the things that your flesh is used to doing. That's the hard part. So you still battle your flesh. And the way it was explained to me, and I have a couple mentors, comrades in Christ, and my aunt being one of them, and she explained it to me just like this. She said, Victoria, your your flesh didn't get saved. You invited God into your heart, into your spirit. So if you've been walking around in that same flesh, I'm 51. If I've been walking around doing the same thing 31 years, it may take me that long to get where I need to be in my spiritual journey. And it made me feel a lot better about the things that I was beating myself up about. Spending more time with Christ, trying to take myself out of it, trying not to get mad. And she was like, you're gonna get mad. You're still gonna get mad if somebody say or do something to piss you off. It's gonna take time to take off those layers and not let the flesh overcome. But once you realize that that's what you've done, repent. And if you can, ask that person for forgiveness and move on. That's your walk. And the more you do it, it's just like riding a bike. The same things that you were out there in the street doing day in and day out, if you clubbed every day, the more you ask for forgiveness every day, the more it will become a second thought. It'll be second nature, and you'll be able to, you'll start doing it without even realizing that you're doing it. So
yeah,
that
I
made me
like
feel a
that.
lot better. So we can't beat our flesh up for doing what it's accustomed to doing. It's accustomed to getting the attitude when somebody cuts you off and you want to flip them the bird.
Listen.
And sometimes you might just flip them the bird.
Yes, Yes. But it reminds me of a conversation I had with my therapist a couple weeks prior. And we were talking about being able to distinguish, like, I guess, like your spiritual self opposed to like your human self. And I know some people might be like, well, what? Because I've had a person tell me like that doesn't make sense. We're whole, we're one. And yes, we are. However, some people use their spiritual beliefs, Christianity, and all that things to negate their feelings. And I was doing that at one point. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so when things would happen, I wouldn't address it as a feeling, whether I was angry, sad, mad, or my favorite, not really, but crying, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I would address it as something like higher than that, with God. And I still do now I know how to put the two together, because at the end of the day, we're still human. We're still going to have those human feelings. We're still going to
Mm-hmm.
respond in a human manner,
Mm-hmm.
and I like to think of it also like it's not really what has happened to you or what someone else has did, but it's all about how you respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us respond with emotions and
Mm-hmm.
say things when we're angry, and then later don't mean it. That's where all the
Mm-hmm.
internal work, comes into play, because you get that self-control, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a part of life, and it's a
It
work
is a
in
part of life.
itself.
And women, we're emotional creatures anyway. I say that all the time on my show. I always say that I always ask my audience if they, especially the women, Black women, we need to pour into ourselves more than anybody, because even when we're in relationships, our partners don't pour into us enough. We always feel like we're lacking or missing something. I've been married 8 years, and this is my third marriage. 10
Mm.
years twice prior, so that was 20 years of my life. So why am I divorced and married a third time? It was something that I wasn't getting. And when I decided to start making me the priority and making sure that I was okay mentally, emotionally, and where I needed to be, then I was able to jump in this relationship. And don't get me wrong, by far, we are far from perfect in a relationship. He's still a man, I'm still a woman, and I'm a
Right.
dominant woman. He's a dominant man. So we butt heads constantly, and I have to sometimes take a step back and reevaluate the situation, because a lot of times it comes from the hurt and the pain and the not someone giving me what I needed in a
Mm.
previous relationship. So then I find myself taking it out on him. So when I found a way to start taking care of myself, and like you do your mental health checks,
Mm.
it's an easier part of life. I'm able to control some of those emotions that I couldn't control before. Because even when I tell people that I'm a Christian, I still cuss, but I don't cuss like I used to cuss. I might slip up if I burn my finger or something. We're still human. We're still gonna have emotions. So it's a part of it.
And the best way to really deal with those emotions is to like let them flow, like
Mm-hmm.
people have heard me say it a lot. And even one of my friends said on my show, like, I have a issue with crying. I don't know. I kind of know where it came from, but it's been something that I've had to like really wing myself into. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And just knowing like crying doesn't make you weak, whether you're a man or a woman. Crying is just symbolizing a feeling, something that's going on, an emotion that you're dealing with, and that is okay. Like, I just have to really reassure myself in those moments that, like, just because you're crying right now, it doesn't mean you're weak, it doesn't mean you're
Mm-hmm.
broken. Like, you're good, girl.
You are. You are.
So I
And
definitely get
strong and beautiful and Black.
and a Virgo.
And a Virgo. We can't. And we're the best. Are we not the best?
Listen, there may be someone out there listening, because I can think of a few people, that cannot stand Virgos. But listen, I told my best friend Jessica the other day, because she's a Virgo too. I said, sis, I have never met so many Virgos in my life. Like, these last couple months, like,
Oh, wow.
I don't know what's going on. It's not a bad thing, because all of y'all are awesome, at least the ones that I've come in contact with. But I don't know, it's a little refreshing too, because like you meet people that share some of the likings for things and places that you do, but also like your mindset is a little different, so it helps you grow. Like I don't have to tell you, I can go on and on just based on the last couple of months, like how you've helped me on my spiritual growth, and we don't even talk every day. You know what I'm saying? So you never know why a person is placed on your path, or what a person can help you through in your life. That's why I said in my last episode, like, don't look at people, don't look at, oh, I got to ask this person for help. Look at people as being a resource, a positive resource for you, to help you get through something. You may not have to ask that person for nothing. You can listen to their podcast every day, or whatever the case may be. But I know you said that, like, your walk with God, you would consider like a storm that you would have to like pivot through once in a while. Has there ever been anything else in your life that you have experienced, that you've had to like make a pivot from that to get on the right track?
My battle with being a single mom, and I turned to drinking more alcohol. And it's funny that you asked that, because I was talking to one of my comrades in Christ today, and I said, I really think I heard from God, because I was thinking about us talking, and if I wanted to share that. I had already shared it in a prior episode on my show, and I was talking to God, and something just said, you were never an alcoholic. So I want you to stop telling people that you were alcoholic. You was a single mom that lost her corporate status, lost her husband at the same time, lost her home, her car, and you turned to another substance for a while without getting professional help. Had you got professional help and stopped trying to hide it from the world that you were really hurting and you were in pain, you lost your best friend, your husband, you lost your money, your cars, you wouldn't have turned to alcohol as heavy as you did. That is something that I had to pivot from. And I had to make up in my mind that that was going to be something that I wasn't going to do anymore. It did not come easy. It did not come easy. And when it hit me, I was painting my living room, and I just kept saying, I want to change. And I happened to be listening to what I call now secular music. And a Christian song came on, and the girl was singing it a cappella. And I had a drink in my hand, and I was taping off the baseboards of my living room, and it just stopped me in my tracks. And I said, God, I want to make a change, but how do I stop going? I don't know what you guys call them where you're at, but we call them ABC stores here. How do I stop every day when I get off work from going to the ABC store, or every other day, making sure that I had something to drink when I got off my shift? And something just said, stop today. And the next day, it was like a second thought. 3 days in of telling myself this is what I really wanted to do. I wanted to start my journey with Christ. I wanted to rebuild myself. I wanted a better me, not just for me, for my children. 3 days later, it was a second thought. I didn't crave it. I didn't pick up another drink. I just talked to God about it. And after that, it's like my mind started making plans without even writing anything down on a vision board. This is who I always was. And I am determined that my children and my family are going to see the girl that they once knew, the happy-go-lucky girl. So that was a storm that I went through, and I called it, I was an alcoholic. And I called it that because I was drinking every single day. From the time I got off work to probably the next morning, I would go in hungover. But it was a journey. And when I had that conversation the other day, something said, you was never an alcoholic. You chose a different route to deal with your pain instead of facing it head on, because so many of my family and friends depended on me. They depended on my strongness, my professionalism. So I was trying to hide that, not knowing that the alcohol was wearing on the outside anyway. I could pretend all I wanted to. And I had a guy, one of my guy friends I would never forget, he took a picture of me when I was going through the process.
Mhm.
And then he held a picture up of me years before that. He said, "Do you see the difference night and day?" Then he took a third picture when I stopped drinking completely. And I was back to that first girl, the old girl I knew before she lost everything. So that was a storm.
Oh, okay. Whew. So first of all, thank you for sharing that, because we have talked about that personally, but like you said, it wasn't planned for you to even talk about that, and I don't think I was even expecting that, but thank you for sharing, your story, because I'm pretty sure someone else is listening. You probably just helped them get saved, you probably just helped them see the light. So I mean, I commend you, for that in your journey. And literally, it's so crazy how you said, like, God spoke to you and told you to speak about that. As you're talking, something came up in my mind that I've never shared or whatever. And I'm like, should I bring it up? Should I not? So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I don't know what's going on. But so many people deal with substance abuse in itself, whether it's alcohol or it's some type of hard drug, or even if it's pills. And some people struggle. I've had family members that have had substance abuse issues and never, really struggled to shake that addiction. I think I'm about to talk about it. This is
Well,
your fault.
you have to do that when you're ready. Like, I didn't share as much on my episode, never having to be anyone but yourself. I did what I thought was best, and it was at the spare of the moment, and I spoke to God about it, and I said, there's so many single women out here, whether they're separated from their husbands or just single, and their baby fathers left, and a lot of them in my age group, a lot of them in perhaps your age group. As I was going in and out those ABC stores, feeling bad for myself and wishing that I had the willpower not to go that day, I would see ladies in nurses' uniforms, ladies in business suits like me. And I thought to myself, once I dried up and finished going through all that, I'm not the only one. You used to see it as you were going in and out that door. So if you can do nothing else, maybe you can stop somebody from going down the road that you went down, because I lost everything. I mean, literally everything. And it wasn't due to the alcohol, but it came after I lost everything, because I was so used to being on top. I didn't know what it felt like to not have anything. And when I literally say I had nothing, I found myself in New York, staying at a friend's house, sleeping on her floor, because I had lost everything in North Carolina. And that was that at that time I was angry, mad, and sad. And I was like, where are you, God? But now I look at it as, you have to give him something. And I lived a good life. You have to give him something, or else he gonna show you who's God. And literally, I can look out this window behind me, and my $250,000 house that I used to live in is literally right across the field. So sometimes he got to break us down to build us back up.
Absolutely.
And I'm okay with that today.
Yeah. Whew, yeah. I literally that's been like a quote I've been saying just to remind myself in the space that I'm in now. Like sometimes he will break you down to you have nothing and you only can depend on him. No one else on the outside can help you get through what you're going through. Maybe, in materialistic ways, but he is going to be the ultimate power that guides you through. I can sit and talk about so many different encounters that I've had in my life that I felt like were storms, whether it was my sexual abuse, whether it was a breakup, whatever. But the one that I was saying that I don't talk about, not necessarily often, but in general, is I had a pill problem at one point. It was I would say it was a short term, and I was going through like a really hard time in my life. And, this was unfortunately back when it was very easy to get opiates. Like I would go to the first time I went to the hospital, I thought I was dying. Like my body was hurting. I was so sick. And they instantly wrote me a prescription for Percocets. And I had never took a Percocet a day in my life. And my mom, she was just like, just take a half a pill because that may be too strong for you. And I took the whole pill. And what I was going through at that time, that pill felt like it was everything I needed, because all I wanted to do was just sleep. And if you have ever taken a Percocet or anything close to it, you know that it's going to make you feel a little weird, and then it's going to knock you out. And then every time I would wake up, I'm like, I don't want to be woke. So I'm going back to taking them, going back to the hospital. I'm still not feeling well. I don't know what's going on. Write me another prescription for Percocets. And it just was a thing for a couple months. And it went from me taking like one pill or two pills at a time to me taking like 4, 5. And at this point in my mind, I wasn't trying to kill myself, but I just wanted to like sleep, and whatever I had going on at the time, I just wanted to go away. I was very young too. This was in my early 20s. So I wasn't in therapy. I didn't have the friend group I had now. And that's when I found out that there are things such as functioning addicts. Not that I was an addict, I don't consider myself that, but I will literally could have a half a pill or whatever and go to the club that same night and not be like sleepy, but I'm functioning to go to the club with my friends with that in my system and drinking and doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff. It was till the last encounter that I went to the emergency room, and I couldn't tell you how many pills I had swallowed. And the guy that was taking my vitals, he was like, "You look really messed up." And I was like, "Well, I don't feel good. My body hurts." He said, "Did you take anything?" And I was like, "I took Percocets because I was in pain." And he was like, "You look like you took about 5 or 6. Like you look really." This is the guy taking my vitals. And I'm like, "Why are you talking to?" You know what I'm saying? Like, why are you talking to me like that? He's like, "You just look like you're on some stuff." And even now, when I look back to like, if I can find pictures, because I think I've scrubbed all my socials of that time period, because I had lost all this weight. It was just bad. And then they took me to the back, and the doctor hadn't come in yet, but then they sent the social worker in. So this one I'm like, oh shoot, they about to send me, send me to a facility. And she came in and she's like, this is the deal. Either you check yourself into some type of outpatient or therapy, or we're going to admit you to treatment. And I hopped up the bed. I was like, oh, it's nothing wrong. Like, I am perfectly fine. I was like, I just wasn't feeling well. They've given me this medication to cope with the pain. Because mind you, my body, in my mind, my body hurting. And that's the reason I'm taking these pills, And they're like, well, you've taken a lot. And they start doing like the whole suicidal test and all that stuff. And I was like, I never thought about killing myself. I don't want to kill myself. I just want to sleep. Bad choice of words. So it wasn't until like I agreed to do whatever they wanted me to do as far as like outside, like outpatient treatment. They only allow me to go home. And I did start seeing like a substance abuse therapist or whatever. And I may have like relapsed like one time in therapy. And then after that, I never forget this day. I was on the phone with my friend and I was going through my moment. Because at this point, I wasn't allowed to take nothing, but I still had everything in my possession. And I was on the phone with her and she talked me into like flushing these pills down the toilet. And I'm like, once they gone, I can't go and get them back. They done blocked me at the pharmacy from getting this medication. Like it'll be over. And I did. I cried so much flushing these pills down the toilet because I knew it was over at that point, right? And at that point, like I really had to get myself together. And then at that time, like I was also drinking a lot, going out a lot, but I was drinking very heavy, and I just had to like kind of stop going out as much as I could. And as time has gone on, like I have not taken a Percocet since, besides the fact that I can't get them. I mean, like prescribed to me, I can't get them at all. But what I would do was when I would get medicine from doctors and stuff like that, I would hoard them. I became like a medicine hoarder. And what happened was in my last relationship, before we like officially broke up, I pulled out this big bag of pills. And she was like, my ex was like, what is this? And I was explaining, because that had been, I don't think I fully explained like all of that part. And I was like, this is what I do, because I always feel like if I ever need to go get something, like I always got something in I had a whole Glad bag full of pills. At that time, never had taken anything or whatever. And then it like, even like talking to my mom, like somebody had to physically come take the pills so I wouldn't think about doing it. But then like what ended up happening, unfortunately, was after the breakup, I did go back to not Percocets, but something else that I had in my possession that I was actually prescribed by the psychiatrist that I was seeing. And I took it like a few times. That last time I took it was like it made my body do something they ain't never did before. And I don't know if that was God like coming in my spirit, like, look, girl, I need you to like get your life right. You know what I'm saying? And get back on track, because this is not it. And I was like, okay, well, if this is not how I'm gonna go out, then I got another plan. And this is when I actually had a suicide plan. At this point, I couldn't follow through with it because God stepped in once again. But after that particular moment with those last pills back in 2019, I haven't touched anything since then. And that's why I don't like taking medication. Like anybody that knows me know that I hate taking anything, even ibuprofen. I may take ibuprofen once a month. Like a lot of us women take something, but it was a hard pivot from that time, because I didn't think in my mind that, I just thought I was just really trying to just like move forward from what had happened, not knowing that I was getting myself sucked into something that, God forbid, I could have gotten and probably never would have gotten out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So like, I'm definitely grateful now where I am in life that I don't even think once about any of that. You know what I'm saying? And to people that I know that have dealt with those type of struggles or dealing with, I'm able now to like try to like help them understand more what they're going through. And you don't need to be dependent on a substance to help get you through something, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much you drink, how many pills you pop. When you wake up out of that being intoxication, all those problems that you try to drink and take pills to go away, it's still going to be there. It's still there. And once I woke up and I'm like, oh, it's still here. Just take another pill. Once I ain't having no more, I'm like, oh. So now I'm like pushed to do something. And that's when I was already in 2019. I had already been in therapy, which I wasn't like in therapy like that initially. I just did it so they could get off my back. But that time I really stepped up in therapy, because I was like, yeah, y'all not about to send me away.
Yeah. Well, Well, I'm glad that you shared that with me. Yay. And I'm glad that you were able to take that step. Sometimes God will push you in places. And I always say that, and please forgive me. And I tell anybody, don't be offended. I'm right now, like I said, I'm a baby Christian, so I'm thirsty for
Mhm.
everything in my life. It relates to my walk with Christ. But I'm glad you were able to get through that moment. And that's what it's all about, being able to share our story with somebody else because we've been there and look at us.
Amen to that. Because at the end of the day, like, you never, I think when you're going through anything, you think it's the most devastating thing ever, you know?
Yes, yes,
And you
yes.
never imagine yourself getting out of whatever that situation is. It's like, man, I'm in this and this is just it. Until you get a breath of fresh air or get some type of release from
Mm-hmm,
that situation, you're like, oh, okay, there is light at the end of the tunnel. But I have to stay in it, unfortunately, go through whatever detours that God places on
mm-hmm,
your path to get you
mm-hmm,
through. And what I've
mm-hmm.
continued to learn and remind myself daily is it's not about how I want to go through things. It's not how I want things to pan out, but it's always about the divine timing and the plan that he has set for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, Lord knows I don't know where I would be right now. So like,
Amen to that, sister. I'm
yes,
telling you.
yes, and and it takes daily work, you know. So being
Oh yeah.
someone like yourself that's been through just numerous things, you know, in your life, what are ways now that you're able to stay on track when you're faced with like some type of adversity or what would appear to be a storm?
Prayer first.
Hmm.
I always pray about it. Now, I've always been a writer. I've always been a journal type person. I started several books a couple of years ago, and I am going to finish one of them one day. um, but now I do more vision boards, and I've always been the type of person that throws myself into my work. I give it 150% of what I got. So that's kind of like my pivoting point from going through it. I mean, mostly just prayer and to getting in my word. And I still have my days where I'll get in a funk and I'll just want to lay in the bed and
Hmm.
I'll fester over it until I may TV and find something inspirational, whether it be one of my favorite ministers or bishops or something. And then I'm up within that 24 hours, or my husband will come and say, you know what? We not gonna let Satan defeat us today. We gonna do this. And why don't you just tell him he gotta go? But I mean, prayer. I mean, when I'm thrown off track and I'm faced with different things, right now it's just prayer. And I'm happy to say that because when I drive by any liquor store, I smile because I don't have the desire to go in there. And sometimes I just want to go in there and say, you remember me? I used to come in here every day. Look at me now.
I know that's right. And I think that's big for anybody, like you said, with prayer, whether you start your day with it, end your day with it, it's midday, whatever the
Hmm.
case is, you know. Um, and you know, it sounds like you said, like keeping yourself busy and thrown into
Hmm.
whatever you're working on at that time, which I think that's what I do as well. Like I have to find something to do, like to
Hmm.
be active. But it is also for me a lot of times a distraction from whatever I need to be doing or
Hmm.
whatever I have going on. So I'm learning more to just allow myself to be in moments like when I don't have something going on chaotic, like do not create chaos, you know?
Right.
And knowing like it is okay to be at peace in life. It is okay to just sit and not deal with any chaos and whatever. But being a person like me that's used to always being in something chaotic, it's like, okay, when is it going to happen? Like, what's going
You
on?
know
Like,
what? I'll tell you, Shakita, I think it's the Virgo in us because I literally be like, I'm gonna tell you, one day I was driving down the road and I don't know what I was going through, but I was like, okay, something just stopped me and said, okay, you got a roof over your head, you got gas in the car, you got money in the bank. what else, Victoria, are you getting ready to conjure up for you to just pull out the blue to pray about to me? And it was like I was having a whole conversation with God, and I was like, you know what? I do that. Is that the Virgo of me? I look for the other shoe to drop when everything is perfectly fine. It's always like you're always waiting for that next thing to fall. But I think that's the Virgo in us, because I've met other Virgos that do the same thing. So I know I'm not crazy.
No, you ain't crazy at all. And like I have also like brought this up to my therapist too, because when I tell you she spent months trying to get me just to sit still, you know,
Yeah.
and part of it is her saying like it is a trauma response when you are a person that has lived in survival mode all your life. You're always looking for something to survive from. And I realized at the end of 2022 that I had been doing that. And that's why I was attracting a lot of things that I had to get out of, or like my health was like so bad, you know? And I coming into this new year, I was like, yeah, we got to lose that mindset, sharpen up these skills and move forward. And I'm, like I said, I'm learning to just continue to let things flow and release the resistance around things. You know, Virgos, we like to control things like we talked about on Saturday on the live. Like we gotta get our point in things across. And I need you to understand what I'm trying to say or what I'm trying to do. And it is frustrating. It's very frustrating. But I feel
and
like
everybody else seems weird, don't they? They all seem weird. Like
why the math not mathing?
Right, right. I still go through that with my husband, and I'm like, why is it he doesn't get what I'm trying to say, or he just won't listen? If he just listened to me, then it would go a certain way. And he's like, Victoria, you know, if everything is not your way, the way you say it, the way you want it done, then it just can't be done right. And when he said that, he reminded me of my late mother, because my mother used to say that all the time. She used to say, Victoria, if you can't do it, then it can't be done. You really believe that? So I have to learn how to pull back from that too. So that's why I say I think it's just the Virgo, hearing your story and how you do stuff. I think that's just the Virgo thing. I think that's just the Virgo thing.
And you know what? I'm grateful for like having like the friends that I do, because I've had to also work on just trusting myself more and not like, oh, I know what I need to do or what the answers are, but I need to run to someone else just so I can get some reassurance that I'm on the right track. So like, no, when I want to make a decision, like when my, you know, intuition tells me to go with this, I'm going to do it. And then if I want to discuss it later, I'll do it. But having a friend group like I do, they're not gonna like let me do something stupid, of course. But if you do it, it's like, look, you go ahead and do it. We're gonna support you, but we will also tell you how like dumb and messed up it was at the same time. Like I don't believe in having like a whole bunch of people in my space that's going to enable me and going to agree with every single thing that I say, because I've had that before and I was out in the streets, like just live. I mean, some people may say, oh, you was living a life. No, that's not. Now that I'm older, how my mind is now, like, no, I was jeopardizing my life and myself in so many different ways, you know? So now it's like, no, I would never want those type of people in my space, you know? No offense to none of them now, because we're all grown, but just even think about that. Like maybe I created most of the not maybe, but I did create most, or if not some of the things that I did encounter, you know. But like I always say, like when you know better, you do better, you know.
I think that's a big problem that I had when I was younger. And that's something that I'm working on now. I don't like to take responsibility or own up to the things that I know that I may have created. So in the last couple years of working on myself and my walk with God, I'm consciously aware now of saying, I'll talk to myself. So what could you have done? You know, you probably really created that, but to deflect and not make yourself feel as bad as you do, you're going to say, well, if such and such wouldn't have said or did this. In reality, you know, you need to take responsibility for that. And in the past, I wouldn't I wouldn't do that. I was always the victim.
Mm,
And
mm,
and
mm.
that's the difference. Like, even when I was younger and out running the street and partying, and I partied, I clubbed, I was the it girl, everybody wanted to hang. I was still kind of passive aggressive,
Mhm.
but I still knew that I was creating things that I would never take the responsibility for. And then because I was cute and short and the guys like me, I always had somebody to have my back, even when I was in the wrong. Like, you're not gonna mess with her. And now that I'm older, I'm learning to take responsibility, even with situations with my kids where I have been wrong, or like in my journey, and saying that, well, maybe, I tried to hide it from them. Maybe it didn't hurt them as bad as it did. Maybe it did, and maybe they love me too much to tell me. Maybe now we're having those conversations and I have to take responsibility, and I have to listen, and I have to be quiet, and I have to let them vent,
Mhm.
and I have to let them get all that stuff out. But at the same token, after we've done that, you don't get the opportunity to keep coming back knocking at the door wanting to beat me up.
Right.
So, oh,
Listen,
child.
you talking sound like so much like me. Like, it's crazy. Except I'm the accountability. Now I'm the accountability queen. Like, if I know that I done wrong, or something was my fault, or I lacked somewhere, I'm gonna be like, you know what? You're right. Or now you don't even tell me that I did it. Like, I know, and I can acknowledge my wrongdoing, and I could just try to do right. Unfortunately, none of us can go back and right any wrongs where we went in situations or with people. And I think that's what a lot of people want. It's like, okay, damn, I already said I'm sorry. I apologize. I learned my lesson. I understand everyone can't move forward, but I want to move forward. If you choose to stay in this space and can't move forward from the things that went on between us, or whatever the situation may be, that is no longer my fault. And I feel like that's what a lot of people do. They hold on and they harness onto the fact that someone else can't forgive or let go and move forward, and then it becomes more of your problem. Nope, that ain't my fault. I done my part. I done took accountability. I try to make amends. If it doesn't work, at least I can come back and say I did wrong, yes, but I tried to clean it up. But I also have an open mind that everyone is not always open to that. And I think that's the unfortunate part, you know, and that's why I have become more, and I've worked so hard to just be more of an active listener, because I knew, like, back in the day, like, I was listening, but I was already listening to respond. Like, I knew what I was going to say. It didn't matter what you said, because I already knew what I was going to say. Now I'm listening to learn, because maybe I went wrong somewhere, and I didn't see it. Like, people see things in us a lot of times that we don't see, or that we don't want to acknowledge, I like I literally told my aunt that a couple months ago we were in the market, and for some odd reason throughout COVID, just like many people, I got like very, very, very bad anxiety with being around people in crowded spaces. Just, it's horrible. And we were in the market, and I'm like, all right, wherever I go, you go. Wherever you go, I go. Because she's the type of person, you turn your head, she's gone. Like, she's gone. And at this particular point, she was moving so fast, like doing so many things at once. I was like, hey, you need to calm down. I was like, you okay? And she was like, yeah. But she didn't realize that she was like chaotic and all over the place. And I was like, don't think that I'm like criticizing you or beating you down. Sometimes people see things that you don't see.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I don't want you getting stressed out or worked up about not being able to find the bread out, or whatever she was doing at that moment. And she's like, you know what? Thank you for that, because I didn't know. And then on the other side, that's just some people's reality. They're just all over the place. You know what I'm
My
saying?
husband says the same thing about me. He says the same thing about me. He said everything that you just described that you do, he says the same thing about me. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I can't.
I'm like that sometimes, but but the thing about it, see, with me is it stresses me out. If I'm working and I feel like I'm trying to do a million things at one time, like I
Mm-hmm.
start getting very anxious, and I'm just like, okay, out of all these million things that you're doing, what should you not be doing right now?
It's stressing. I have a
You-
problem. I work better under pressure. I
I
am a
used
big
to.
procrastinator. I will procrastinate, but I will wait to the very last minute to get something done. But I promise you, when it's done right. But I will procrastinate. You could give me a date 4 weeks out in advance, and I probably won't start on it to the week that it's due. But it's gonna be done. Don't ask me why. I work better under pressure.
That was me in college. Like I remember days in grad school, and I'd rather go out partying on that Saturday, knowing that paper was due Sunday at 11:59. And I would let
Hmm.
all day Sunday go by until like 8, 9, 10 o'clock to start that paper. And I don't mean just a 1, 2 page paper. I mean like 5, 10 pages. Now it got in, and I graduated grad school as a B plus student. So
Yay.
I know, but it was just that pressure of just knowing that it's due at this time. I'm gonna get it done, opposed to like getting it out the way long before, then doing all the
Hmm.
fun things. I'll wait to the last minute. Now, I sometimes I am that way, but then again, I'm old and I'm getting old now. I get
Yeah.
stressed out. I'm like, oh my god, I need to leave out the house at this time to be there, and like you just never. I try to plan things out. Like I said before, I'm structured, and a lot of us Virgos are very structured
We
and
are.
routine, So I try to do that because it also helps me keep my stress down, but it also helps me
Hmm.
navigate through situations better as well.
Hmm.
If I have a concrete plan, even if things don't go that way, at least I have some type of idea on how they could potentially flow. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
but you never
Yeah,
know.
we do. We do. I mean, we are very structured. I am. I'm like, my husband calls it OCD.
Yeah.
I am. I'm not gonna lie about it. But I can mess up, but you can't
Mm,
mess up. I can be
period. So
messy, but you can't be messy.
yes, and don't
And
you dare
he'll
call
get
me
me
out.
right. And don't you dare come right, right, right. Amen to that. Amen to that. I swear that was a deja vu moment. I swear it was. I dreamed this somewhere. I had to.
Probably
But yeah,
did.
I am. I probably did. I probably did. And that's another thing. He goes, "How do you dream so much? I never go to sleep and dream." I said, "I do. Maybe I just have a lot." He says, "You have a lot on your mind. You just keep something constantly up there. If it's not up there, you're going to put it up there." But that's just who I am. He's got to love me. He's been with me 8 years.
Yeah, he ain't going nowhere.
He ain't going nowhere. He ain't going
Yes.
nowhere.
But this has been a very good conversation.
It
I
has.
appreciate your vulnerability, and I appreciate your energy, and just for taking the time out to come and talk to me. I mean, we talk, but
Yeah.
this is different. So thank you for this. And I
You're
hope
welcome.
that with this you were able to help someone out there that's listening, or maybe something I said helps someone that's listening. That's always
Hmm.
the intended purpose. Like we talked about that, the intended
Hmm.
purposes of using our voices and our platforms. And I really hope with this
Right.
discussion, just like others, that this really helped someone that is trying to like pivot through a storm or a time in their life. And to
Hmm.
just wrap things up, what is a piece of advice or some encouraging words that you can offer to someone at this time who is going through something, that's trying to navigate their way through?
Well, I always go back to prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Prayer changes things, but here's the thing. If you're not willing to change and you're not willing to commit to that, you have to want to do it. People can tell you all day to change or pray about it. And I try to refrain from telling anybody to just pray about it, because if that's not your thing, that's not your thing. I try to refrain from telling people to change. You have to make the decision to change for the better or the worse. It's totally up to you. And what I'm trying to do now is if you come to me and you want to know how I did it, I'm willing to share my story and be as vulnerable as I can be. Because, like tonight, I really debated about what exactly I was going to say because I hadn't really told my story on my platform. But as I was having this conversation with myself, and sometimes I like to say I'm having it with God, I said, if this helps someone, and knowing what your platform is all about is about helping people the same way mine is, then just do it.
Mhm.
Just get it out. But if you don't want to make that change for yourself, start small changes. If you're a single mother and you have children in your life, look at your babies and do it for them if you can't do it for yourself. But change can only happen when people want to change. If you don't want to change, it's not going to happen. You have to want that for yourself, and you have to start making little small changes to do it. That's just It's just that cut and dry. I mean, if people wouldn't address so much stuff up for me, I probably wouldn't have went through the things that I went through, not knowing how to navigate when I guess everything hit the fan.
Mhm.
So if I could tell anybody something is to believe in yourself, make small changes. It's not going to be easy. Every day is not an easy walk for anybody, but there's always somebody out there that's willing to help you and pick you up if you start to make small changes. You got to surround yourself, put yourself in the right circles. Everything is not for everybody, and everybody's not meant to go where you're going to go. And everybody's not going to want to go where you want to go. And you're going to be talked about, and they're going to try to pull you back down. It's like crabs in a bucket. They're not going to want you to see you win or survive. But if you get out, run for the border, and just keep heading to the future in the light, get out of the darkness and come into the light. Because for me, I see so many of our young brothers and sisters not even making it to see 20 or 30. My mission is I want them to make it to see 51. My father was an alcoholic. I thought that was the path that I was going to go down. He died at 48 years old from a brain aneurysm and in a bar. He had been
Mhm.
sober and clean for years and decided to take his first drink on his birthday and died in a bar. And I thought that was going to be my story. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm living proof. And I did not have to go to a rehab. I just told God what I wanted and I was sincere about it. I always tell my young people miracles do happen. They may not
Mhm.
be winning the lottery, but I consider myself a miracle.
Amen. Amen. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. And mm, I don't have nothing to say. See, it's very few moments I get speechless because I'm a talker.
I
But that was
I
that was
know.
that was beautiful. Mm, that was
Don't
beautiful. So
make me
y'all,
cry.
n- no, listen. If you feel it, just let it go. I told you I'm
I know.
learning to get into the touch of that. But no, that was. I don't have nothing to follow up with that. I legitly don't. And again, like I appreciate you for your vulnerability, for telling your story. And I would encourage you to keep telling your story, of course, at your own comfort, of course.
Hmm.
And because you are changing lives, you are helping people. I've said it before, like whether you know or not, you've helped me, you know, in ways that you don't even know, just from having your podcast and having
Hmm.
personal dialogue with you. So, and you know what I've been going through these last couple of months. So
Hmm.
the space that I'm in now, like I know like it would not be possible for me to be in this space without God, but also having the right people next to me, you know. So
Hmm.
thank you for that. And
You're welcome.
just keep doing the amazing work. And because like you said, I'm literally looking and talking to a miracle.
And I am too. Look how far God brought you.
Yeah.
And, that's a beautiful thing for you to be able to turn your life around the way that you did with all the many things that you've been through. So you keep growing and keep telling people your story, because there's a lot of people in your age group that need to hear that. And I was talking to my husband about this real quick. I never, even though I am religious, I never put my podcast under religion. I put it under society and culture, because religious people listen to religious podcasts. But if I'm trying to reach someone that does not know about God and how he can change things, and how I wasn't always a Christian, I didn't always walk and talk and do the right thing, then I need to go over there to the people that needs to hear the story, not the people that's going to
Mm,
turn on their radio station because they want to listen to a religious podcast. So
that's
my
smart.
journey is to reach the people that can't be reached. And even if they don't turn their life over to Christ, maybe they'll think about making some changes just to be a better person, just to be a
Yeah.
better person.
Yeah, that's actually that's smart. That was smart. That was smart. But we've talked about this podcast and all this stuff. Can you tell everyone where they can find your amazing podcast and your
Well,
social media?
you can find me on Anchor. Well, what is it? Anchor by Spotify now, or Spotify by Anchor?
Yes.
One of those. They can find me on Spotify by Anchor, iHeartRadio, Castro, Apple, Amazon Music. You can find me on Instagram under Victoria Marshall 7739, or on Facebook as Victoria Johnson. On my webpage, 12thstreettalkback.com //.com. And I think that's about it. I'm not
Good
sure.
pods.
Good pods. Good pods. You can
Can
find me
we?
on Good
Yes.
Pods. Drum
Yes.
roll, please, for being on the
Yes.
charts.
The top
Hit number
100.
one.
Okay.
Man, when I seen that we hit number one like 2 or 3 times, I was like, and that was God. That was God, because it's my morning aspirations, 2 minutes a day. I just had a lady tell me today when I went up to the church, she didn't even know that was me that did them. And she said, I start my day off with you. Even when I'm in a bad mood, it's something about you just having that 2 minutes a day that gets me through the day, and it just made my heart jump. So even if I didn't do the 30-40 minute segments, the 2 minutes a day, as long as it's helping somebody get through the day, I'm good with it. God doing what he wants me to do. Save one soul.
Absolutely. Yes, because she ain't the only one that's help. She ain't the only one that feel like it's helping her. Okay, like I have said that. So I will have all of her links and information in the description, so you guys can go follow her on social media, as well as subscribe to her podcast. I promise. Listen, I promote everybody on this show.
I know she does.
I do, but listen, please go follow this podcast. Like, especially if you're a person that feels like, you're really trying to find your way back on the right track, or just through whatever you're going through, go check out a couple of episodes, and that's me not forcing my beliefs or like any spiritual or religious or anything like that onto someone else, because sometimes it helps to think outside the box a little bit. You know what I'm saying? But
And
like,
that's why I do the Tuesdays through Thursdays, because it's not just a religious podcast. I do the morning
right.
and inspirations for 2 minutes a day, Monday through Friday. But on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, we do regular shows about everything that happens in this world, from police brutality to substance abuse, you name it. So it's just not a religious podcast. It talks
Mhm.
about the things that goes on in this world, and how I use my walk with Christ to handle that. I still get mad at police brutality and all that stuff like that too. So that's why I didn't want to box it in religion like that. So I
Yeah.
think that we all can have conversations. I love your show. I learn a lot about myself just listening to some of your journey, and I'll sit there and I have to listen to my podcast quiet. So when I see you put one out, I'm usually back here and I'm like, go on, honey, go somewhere. I'm listening.
Thank
But
you. I appreciate that.
you've helped me a lot. You've helped me. You've given me things to think about as well. So I really appreciate you, sister. Keep going. God's going to do amazing things for you and your journey. Keep telling your story. Keep staying positive. Don't give up.
Thank you. I trust me, I need all those words now. And um one thing before we go, I am glad that I have come to this platform and people growing into my true authentic self, because if it was me like maybe like 2 years ago or even before that, the person that you see now, like I would try to always be that happy-go-lucky person, afraid to ever talk about like the down moments, because I needed to portray that I had the best and the perfect life. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And now that I've really feel like I'm stepping into my purpose and I have found my voice, whether people like to hear the things I talk about, whether people believe the things I talk about, I know that it's the reason why I'm talking. I know it's the reason why certain conversations and topics are drawn to me, and my overall arching goal of this whole platform of was for me to help people heal,
Mhm.
and to just motivate people to be better individuals. Because when I started this, like I wasn't a healed person. I'm not healed now.
Mhm.
Was I better than what I was? Yes. And it took a lot to get there. So I'm like, why not pour back into people that need it?
Mhm.
And I'm going to continue to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like I've said before, this is also my healing journey as well. I
Mhm.
may not disclose every single detail when it goes on, but at some point, if as needed, like you said, time will tell if certain things are supposed to be, said, or if it's not,
Mhm.
and I'll just let God direct that path.
Mhm.
So I appreciate people like you, and of course everyone else that's listening, that has supported me, and people that have come on to my platform, because it means a lot. And I always tell people, like, it's not just, oh, come on and that's it. No, like I'm trying to continue to like create a positive community of just different people, and shit, excuse my language. I probably promote other people's shows more than mine, and they don't even
Mhm.
know. I've
Mhm.
gotten DMs from people about my show, and I'm like, no, don't use me, use this person. And I just never
Mhm.
tell people, like, hey, I may, depending on who it is, I may not say anything, but I'm always sending someone's link somewhere. You know
Yes.
what I'm saying?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because I feel like that type of energy, it'll come back to me.
It will.
Everything does not need to be shared, and I'm learning that. Like,
Mhm.
trust me, like this interview, I don't know who this person is
Well,
right now.
the Bible says when you sow seeds on good ground, then you don't have to worry about it coming up tangled with weeds or falling to the waysides.
Mhm.
So if you keep sowing on good ground, then you're always going to get back 100-fold, 50-fold, tenfold. You just got to believe that. And as well as sometimes um, in the book of Proverbs, it says, be slow to speak and quick to listen. So sometimes you have to listen to the things that the conversations that you're having with yourself, the conversations that you have when you're quiet somewhere and you just got out of prayer or devotion or whatever it is. Listen, sometimes it's better to be quick to listen sometimes than slow to speak. And like I said, when I decided to share this with you today, I said, well, I didn't even share all the details on my show. But God gave me a discerning spirit. You know, your group of followers are not the same age group of followers that I have.
Mhm.
And with that being said, this happened early on in my life. So maybe I can catch somebody where I can't go back and snatch up my 28 or 30. Maybe they can stop and think about where they're at now and add a little bit more time to their life where they're still able to.
Yeah. Child, you just woke up something in me, but you're absolutely correct. You're right. And I can't thank you enough for even getting, into as many details as you did, and just, just being you. So again, thank you
You're welcome. You're welcome.
for this.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And thank you guys for tuning into this lovely conversation. I really pray that someone out there that's listening has got something from this, some type of motivation, inspiration, whatever it is. And if it didn't resonate with you, like I always say, that is okay. Please do share it with someone that you may know that it will resonate with. If you need to go back and take some notes, do that as well.
As well. Thank
But
you so
otherwise,
much, Shakita.
yeah, sure. Like I said, I will have all of her information in the description box so you guys can go follow her podcast and tap in with her on social media as well. And my information, you guys know where to find me on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, Chronicles of a Virgo Podcast on all of those lovely platforms. All the information also will be in the description so you can continue to tap in with me. I am so tongue-tied. But nonetheless, thank you guys for checking us out today, and peace out.
Peace out.